Hey friends, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let that gentle fan hum in the corner. Before we plunge into the sulfur-scented night where sparks changed everything, tap that thumbs up if you like drifting to weird history with me, slide down and hit subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments exactly where you're listening from and how late it is. I love seeing the time zones line up like glowing embers on a map. Proof that we're all sitting around one huge virtual campfire waiting for the next crackle. Now breathe in. The room's quiet, but in your mind, you're standing on a muddy field just outside a stone-walled town in the year 1324. It's pre-dawn gray, the kind of murk that smothers color and promises rain. You can smell horses, sweat, wet wool, and something else, sharp, acrid, metallic, almost like scorched earth. Soldiers shuffle around you, muttering prayers, tugging at padded jacks, checking that their helmets are buckled. They expect the usual: arrows, spears, the drumroll thump of wooden rams against gates. But unseen in the dimness, a handful of alchemists and engineers are coaxing a brand new monster to life. And none of these hard men realize tonight is the last night war will ever feel predictable. Let's rewind a beat so we know how we got here, because black powder didn't arrive with a royal procession. It slithered westward, rumor by rumor, recipe by stolen recipe, starting in 9th century China when a Taoist monk mixed saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur trying to bottle immortality and instead blew his eyebrows off. The formula leaked along silk roads, tucked in traders' notebooks beside spice tallies and silk patterns. By the 1200s, it reached the Islamic world, and Arab scholars gave it a name that makes medieval Latin tremble: narunj, fire orange. Europeans first read about it in garbled translations and assumed it was some exotic fireworks trick, good for scaring wolves maybe. Then crusaders saw Mongol siege masters sling bamboo rockets that screamed like demons over city walls, and suddenly every king's war chest opened wide for anybody who could brew the stuff without turning themselves into a smoking crater. You're back on that chilly field. A page hurries by carrying a clay pot the size of a toddler's head. The pot is stoppered with wax, sealed with damp leather, and painted with a skull. You notice his hands shake, and you realize these aren't ordinary lantern bearers, they're human fuses. Somewhere near the moat, master gunners are arranging bronze tubes on crude wooden trestles. They whisper, counting paces, driving stakes into the sponge-soft soil so the barrels don't leap backward when they belch fire. No one in Europe even calls these things cannons yet. Some chronicles label them vasi igniferi, fire-spewing jars. Others just draw a metal vase with smoke curling out and write hic sunt terribilia, here be terrors. And terror is exactly the point. Medieval commanders knew shock value could win battles before swords crossed. Think of war horns echoing through forest mist, or armored knights appearing on the ridge in sunlight like walking statues. But gunpowder is a new flavor of fear. Instant, invisible until the split second it roars, ripping through wood and bone with the speed of a nightmare. Nobody in your company has heard that sound yet. They've only heard stories told in stuttering tavern whispers, explosions so loud they felled men from fright, lead balls that punched through shields like parchment, strange clouds drifting across killing grounds that smelled of rotten eggs and ghosts. The alchemists themselves look like they stepped out of those ghost stories, leather aprons glossy with who knows what, beards peppered white with powder dust, eyes red from sleepless mixing. They spent the whole night grinding ingredients in iron mortars, sifting for the perfect sparkle. Too little saltpeter and the charge will fizzle, too much and the barrel may split like overripe fruit. They pack the breech with dry straw, ram in the black crystals, then a wad of cloth, then the stone ball. Yes, stone, because iron is still too pricey to waste on experimental mayhem. Assistant holds a glowing match cord made of hemp soaked in saltpeter solution. His knuckles gleam pale in the lantern light. You can almost taste the hush that falls over the line. Even birds pause. Somewhere behind the walls, defenders trade jokes about country bumpkins and butter knives. They haven't seen the gun crew creeping up behind the mantlet. A trumpeter lifts his brass horn to signal the infantry advance, but the captain raises a fist. Wait. The gunners need silence. They tamp one last time, step back, nod to each other. Ready. The match cord dips. Sparks dribble like fiery pollen. There's a pregnant hiss. Then sound rips the dawn apart. Words stumble here. Chroniclers describe it as thunder and dragon roar, as if the sky split sideways. You feel it more than hear it, a fist punch to your chest, air ripping away, ground jerking. Smoke erupts, thick and yellow, swallowing the gunners. Soldiers nearest drop their spears, cursing. You blink, ears ringing, heart sprinting. When the haze drifts, you see the cannon jumped off its stand and gouged a trench, but it worked. The stone shot sailed, kissing the parapet, showering defenders in limestone shards. From the wall rises a different scream, high, animal, the sound of men realizing they are suddenly prey in a new, uncertain food chain. Your own camp's reaction is almost worse. Veterans who've stared down horse charges now clutch helmets like frightened novices. Somebody retches. An archer whispers Ave Maria under his breath, string still slack. And this is only test shot 1. The gunners scramble to realign the tube, slipping in mud. The captain regains voice, orders the infantry forward, hoping movement will drown the fear before it multiplies. It half works. Men surge, but they keep side-eyeing that bronze beast like it might swivel and devour them next. Let's zoom out for a second. Black Powder's first European battle cameo might have been at the Siege of Metz in 1324, the field you're standing on, or maybe Algeciras in Spain, 1343, depending on which battered parchment you trust. Chroniclers argue, but the pattern is clear. Small, ostentatious pieces, more psychological than practical. They were inaccurate, slow to load, and just as likely to blow apart as fire. Yet kings kept investing. Why? Because fear is cheap but priceless. One scholar quipped that early guns killed more by rumor than by projectile. Imagine being a castle guard seeing a fiery blossom bloom in the besiegers' trenches. Would you test fate or negotiate? Back in the present mud, reload drills look like chaotic liturgy. The barrel needs swabbing to cool, or residual embers could ignite the next charge prematurely. Water sloshes from a bucket, steam hisses. A servant sprinkles ash on the touch hole to keep sparks from wandering. They load again, faster this time, confidence sneaking in with routine. On the wall, defenders wheel out wooden mantlets, trying to shield archers. Too slow. Boom! Second shot. The ball goes wide, but clips the bell tower roof, shearing tiles that clatter like hailstones into the courtyard. A monk shouts that Judgment Day has arrived. A tavern dog howls, sensing what humans refuse to name. Everything is changing. You move with the infantry now, slogging through churned earth while smoke drifts low, tasting bitter on your tongue. Every muscle expects another thunderclap. It comes, deeper, different pitch. That one's from a mantlet farther left. Another gun team you didn't notice before. Multiplication is part of the terror. The idea that these dragon throats could sprout anywhere overnight. The defenders loose a volley of arrows. They arc beautifully, then fizzle in the smoke, striking nobody. Visibility has become war's newest variable. Archers will learn to hate it. Gunners will learn to love it. Momentum builds. Sappers drag a wooden siege tower forward, its hide-soaked sides glistening. Behind them trundle carts stacked with barrels of the precious powder, guarded like reliquaries. Powder smells like sweaty coins and brimstone. Every army cookfire risked accidental detonation. Logistics officers, usually glorified accountants, suddenly wield life or death power. If they measure ingredients wrong, the next barrage could misfire disastrously. You start appreciating how new tech amplifies bureaucracy. Menus of gun sizes, inventories of shot, ranks of artificers. War is becoming paperwork plus panic. Closer to the wall, noise intensifies, splintering timber, orders barked hoarse, the chesty cough of another cannon somewhere behind you. Then, the unexpected, silence. A breeze pushes smoke aside, revealing the city gatehouse sagging where the first ball struck. A wedge of daylight peeks through stone. The besiegers cheer, but the veteran beside you grimaces. He whispers that broken gates don't win sieges, broken wills do. And gunpowder is cracking will faster than iron ever could. Let's glide across Europe for a moment, so your imagination sees the ripple effect. In Italy, city-states hire master gunners the way they once hired poets. Venice imports saltpeter from the Black Sea by shipload. Even though each barrel must ride on deck, below-deck fumes could turn the hull into a floating candle. German smiths in Augsburg cast slender hand cannons, metal tubes strapped to wooden poles so a single soldier can fire them. Awkward, heavy, but cheaper than training a longbowman for 10 years. In France, a royal ordinance of 1373 promises pardons to convicted criminals who'll serve in gun crews. Apparently, it takes a special blend of courage and recklessness. Word spreads among common folk, too. In village squares, traveling minstrels sing of thunder poles and devil farts that topple towers. Mothers hush children with tales of powder mages who turn night into noon. Alchemists become half feared, half revered, at once healers and harbingers. And in monastery scriptoria, monks debate theology. If war's sounds now mimic thunder, are these weapons stealing God's voice? Back on your field again, afternoon light bleeds gold through lingering haze. The cannon teams have settled into a thudding rhythm every few minutes, each discharge followed by cheers, some forced, some genuine. Archer corps reposition, aware their stardom is fading. Armorers wonder whether plate steel can keep up with lead shot. Masons curse because suddenly every castle arch needs redesign. You, foot soldier turned witness, feel history tipping like a catapult arm. The noise has become less shocking, but beneath acclamation lies dread. Because if your side has guns today, the enemy will tomorrow. And what then? Captain orders withdrawal for dusk. Before leaving, you sneak closer to the primary gun, wanting a final look. The bronze barrel is hot enough to warp air above it. Its mouth is sooty, edges chipped from recoil. But what arrests you is the smell. Sulfur, charcoal, something strangely sweet like burnt sugar. Alchemist explains that's the sulfur binding. It leaves a treacle tang right before it sets teeth on edge. He jokes his wife always knows when he's been in the powder shed. She says he smells like Hell's Bakery. Night falls. Campfires blossom. Soldiers reluctantly bed down, knowing dreams will echo with cannon thumps. You lie on straw under canvas. Pillow is coiled rope, and you wonder how sieges will look in 50 years. Maybe walls shaped like starfish to deflect shot. Maybe guns so light cavalry carry them. You imagine barrels growing longer, iron balls replaced by lead, smoke replaced by muzzle flashes bright as lightning bugs. You don't know it yet, but you're predicting culverins, arquebuses, muskets. What you do know, when dawn comes, you'll march closer. The guns will roar louder, and the world before black powder will feel as distant as childhood. Fade the image, but keep the smell in your nostrils. It'll linger through our next chapter when we follow those master gunners back to their workshops, pry open their secret notebooks, and watch kings gamble fortunes on volatile dust. Smoke still clings to your cloak hours after you leave the front line, and the farther you walk from the shredded earthworks, the more you realize the stench isn't just on the fabric. It has crawled into your hair, your tongue, maybe even your thoughts. Nobody bothers with torches on this back trail to the siege park. The moon is bright enough, and besides, sparks make men nervous now. Ahead, a wagon squeaks like a rusty hinge. It carries nothing but barrels that jiggle ominously with every rut in the road, each one packed to the rim with the dark crystals that turned morning into thunder. A single spark, and this moonlit convoy becomes a falling star. Every driver knows it, yet nobody speaks. Words like flame feel dangerous. The workshop squats in an abandoned sheepfold half a mile behind the trenches. You wouldn't guess its purpose if not for the sentries posted 3 deep and the pile of broken crucibles outside the fence, a graveyard of experiments gone wrong. Push through the wicket gate and heat slaps you, almost hotter than the cannon's muzzle earlier. Braziers roar despite the mild night because ingredients refuse to mix when cold. Saltpeter cakes hard, charcoal sulks, sulfur pouts. They must be coaxed, flattered, bullied with fire. Inside, the chief artificer, Master Hugo, looks less like a scholar and more like a miner who's fought one cave-in too many. Soot tattoos the creases of his face so thoroughly you can't tell where beard ends and grime begins. He waves you over without lifting eyes from the mortar he's grinding. The pestle thuds in slow hypnotic circles, punctuated by hiss when he sprinkles a few drops of water, just enough to keep dust down, not enough to damp the burn. Around him, apprentices scurry between work tables, each table its own miniature universe. One deals in charcoal, shaved from willow and vine clippings, soft as midnight birdsong. Another measures powdered sulfur, the color of 6 sunshine. A third tends the purifying pans where saltpeter crystals bloom like frost after repeated leachings of stale manure piles. It smells precisely as you'd fear. A runner bursts in, clutching a split bamboo tube wrapped in oilcloth, Eastern design, captured from a Saracen arsenal. Hugo snaps it open, peers at the suit patterns inside, and grins the way gamblers grin when dice land double sixes. "See," he mutters to no one in particular. "That venting groove. Genius." He sketches a quick cross-section on a wax tablet, licking the stylus between strokes. Knowledge is capital here, more precious than the silver penny bonus promised per breached wall. Every new detail, cask dimensions, optimum charcoal species, angle of ignition, buys him leverage with lords who barely know one end of a barrel from the other, but understand victory. You edge closer to a shelf stacked with leather-bound notebooks. The spines bear cryptic sigils instead of titles. Illiterate thieves can't steal what they can't pronounce. You slide one free, careful with powder-stained fingers. Inside, diagrams of star-shaped mixing paddles, tables correlating grain size to muzzle velocity, margin notes that read like prayers. If God wills, 3-ounce charge shall not split 1 L bronze at 50 degrees F. You realize these men aren't merely craftsmen, they're proto-scientists, running controlled trials while armies around them still weigh battle plans by horoscope. Master Hugo invites you to witness a blending. 2 apprentices lug over a shallow trough lined with goat hide. Into it, they dump a bucket of coarse saltpeter crystals, still damp from washing. Charcoal dust follows, blooming black clouds. Sulfur last, in clumps that crumble like old cheese. They shovel in lazy figure eights while a third boy trickles in heated wine. The smell hits: campfire, brimstone, spiced cider, homey and hellish at once. Hugo scoops a palmful, rubs it between thumb and forefinger, tasting a grain with the tip of his tongue. "Needs drying," he pronounces, and the batch is shoveled onto copper trays to bake beside the braziers. A shout outside. Sentries drag in 2 infantrymen reeking of drink. One carries a lantern with the shutter half open. Hugo's face drains color faster than a bleeding hog. "Away," he bellows, "no flame inside." The soldiers protest. They're merely lost. They thought this was the mess tent. But the artificer's eyes are white-rimmed fury. He orders them stripped of belts and marched out. He catches his whisper as they're hauled off. One spark could bury 100 men without a funeral mass. Fear keeps this workshop alive. Discipline keeps it from becoming a crater. Near dawn, the mixing winds down. Trays of fresh powder cool in a draft channel. Its surface glints faintly like black snow under moonlight. Hugo offers you a place to sleep, but instead you follow him to the proving butts, earthen mounds studded with spent balls. An ox cart waits, bearing tomorrow's first load of shot. Smooth granite spheres, each marked with chalk to track trajectory tests. Hugo inspects a sphere, tapping for hidden cracks. "Stone shatters," he mutters, almost apologetic. "But iron's dear. The king wants walls down cheap." He shrugs. "Well, aim lower. Let rubble do our work." He catches your gaze and decides you're worth a lecture. "Understand this," he says, voice rough from charcoal dust. "War used to worship distance, keep foes at arm's length, thrust with pikes, knock arrows. Powder breaks that covenant, brings the sky right to their eyelids. But it's fickle. Treat her gently, she sings. Rush her, she eats you." He pats the ox cart like a stable hand calming a stallion. Sunrise paints the proving butts pale pink. Hugo sets a small wrought iron culverin on a timber perch aimed at the hill. You help tamp a minimal charge, then a fist-sized stone. No fortress stakes on this test, just data. The touch hole is primed with meal powder so fine it's almost mist. He signals you to press the match. You hesitate. Memories of yesterday's cannon scream knot your stomach. He grins. First time always worst. After that, you crave the thunder. You lower the cord. Pop. The culverin jerks, spits flame shorter than a candle's breath, yet the ball zips into the berm where it puffs dust. Your heart lurches anyway. Hugo clocks time with a water clepsydra, calculates velocity on a wax slate. Science born from terror. He thanks you, then dumps the remaining charge in a trench of water. Wasteful maybe, but he'd rather lose powder than apprentices. As you trudge back to camp proper, soldiers stir from tents like groggy ants. They stretch sore limbs, cursing damp bedding, unaware how many nightmares brood steps away. Somewhere a priest intones matins, his chant floating above the clatter of kettles. Even monks can't drown the occasional distant boom. The enemy has dragged out its own thunder vases. The arms race has begun in earnest, and you sense a grim symmetry, each side feeding fear into barrels, hoping noise will do what swords cannot. You pass the surgeon's pavilion, where yesterday's cannon victims moan behind canvas. One man shows no visible wound, just burst eardrums that bled until he fainted. Another's arm dangles, shattered by flying stone chips. Surgeons mutter that new weapons invent new injuries. Their bone saws grow dull faster than quartermasters can sharpen. Near the supply wagons, teamsters divide rations. Oddly, gunners receive double ale. Commanders learned early that powder smoke parches throats and nerves alike. Some gunners drink before firing, claiming a buzz steadies trembling hands. Others stash their share, trading for waxed matches or goat tallow to waterproof fuses. Economy reorients around powder. Beekeepers supply beeswax for cartridges. Laundresses collect urine for saltpeter vats. Woodcutters debate which coppice yields charcoal that burns with the fury of St. Michael. And gossip, always gossip. Someone swears he saw a Florentine engineer sketching a giant bombard that can throw a 300-pound stone. Another says the Scots are molding lead balls that flatten on impact. Soft metal, harder nightmares. Each rumor feels plausible because the horizon of possibility just exploded. Dusk again. You sit on a stump, watching sparks dart from the smithy where cannon bands are heated and hammered into place, iron belts that keep barrels from bursting. Every clang rings like a funeral bell for the age of chivalry. Knights still polish lances somewhere, but they've become ornaments in a world rewiring itself around flame. You wonder what a tourney will look like when a single handgunner can cripple a mounted champion before the lance comes down. Perhaps tourneys will fade into pageants, all theater, no risk, violence outsourced to powder. Master Hugo passes by, face exhausted yet alight. He says, tomorrow the big bombard, christened Lady Tremor, will speak for the first time. Her barrel took 3 weeks to cast and 3 days to haul. Her shot is granite but banded with iron, blessed by a bishop so fragments scatter consecrated dust. Come watch, he invites. History rarely repeats a first scream. You crawl into bedroll, mind humming with the day's revelations, and whisper thanks that you're merely a foot soldier, not a wall waiting to be kissed by Lady Tremor. Then a cruel thought. Walls can't run, soldiers can. If bombardment fails, commanders will need infantry to storm the breach. That means you. Sleep retreats, leaving you alone with the sour aftertaste of burnt sulfur and the uneasy knowledge that everyone on both sides is just dynamite waiting for a match. Dawn smolders the horizon blood orange, and camp is awake long before the sun itself can climb free of the ridge. A low-throated murmur rolls through the tents, equal parts dread and giddy expectation, because today Lady Tremor speaks. The Bombard's crew have stripped to linen shirts despite the chill. Sweating is safer than loose sleeves flirting with smoldering wicks. You fall in with the procession escorting her final ammunition wagon to the forward battery. It takes 16 oxen to drag the single granite shot, a boulder the size of a full-grown hog, banded in iron rings like a jailbird who already knows she's guilty. Every rut in the track makes the cart groan. Every groan makes men flinch as though they hear joints in God's own spine cracking. Master Hugo marches beside the driver, palms clasped behind his back exactly the way a priest follows a coffin. He scans the ground for sparks, nails, anything that could jar the load and mark this day with an obituary instead of a breach. Close behind, 2 monks carry relics, femur fragments of some third-rate martyr, because even new war machines crave old superstitions. They chant psalms in quavering Latin, voices swallowed by the squeal of wheels and the rasp of chains dragging spare water barrels. In case of accidental fire, you douse first and pray later. The battery sits in a shallow cutting hammered out of hillside clay. Breastwork of timber, fascines stuffed with mud, stakes angled like fangs. Within it, Lady Tremor rests on a timber carriage whose axle looks too fragile until you remember it's not meant for travel, only to squat and roar. Her barrel, bronze green and sooty inside, yawns at the enemy curtain wall across the valley. That wall is thick ashlar that once bragged it could outlive dynasties. Today, it looks more like a target painted by hubris. A milling of nobles appears, silk cloaks, gemmed sword belts, fragrant pomanders to fend off latrine stench. Most have never stood this near a bombard. They sip hot wine and pretend the tremor in their hands comes from cold. One count boasts that he's wagered 10 gold florins Lady Tremor will crack the wall on her very first kiss. You note how the gunners place wedges beneath the bombard's breech, how they sight by squinting down a lath strapped along the barrel's top rib. Science in rags, showmanship in velvet. Hugo's crew begin the loading ritual. First, a canvas pouch of coarse gunpowder shoved down with a 2-man ram. Then a wadding, damp straw to stop sparks sneaking back. The stone shot follows on an improvised sled of greased plank, hauled by rope and heaved into the muzzle with grunts that sound obscene in the morning hush. When it finally thuds home, a sigh escapes the watching crowd, as though some collective lung had been clenched these last minutes. Torch-bearers arrive with slow, deliberate steps. The fuses, twisted linen cords steeped in saltpeter solution and dried hard as stick candy, are passed out like sacraments. Hugo himself sets a thin priming trail in the touch hole, tapping with a goose feather to settle grains just so. He's told you priming is 80% of success. Too little, the charge sulks. Too much, flash spits backward into faces. He snaps the feather neatly in half afterward, a tiny gesture of finality. Trumpets blare from the command ridge. It's theater, of course, but necessary. You're about to ask a gathering of tired soldiers to stare straight at the threshold of hell and trust their leaders know its depth. Signal flags lift. Hugo raises a hand. You feel every noise in camp pinched silent. The gun captain, a wiry Gascon with powder burns tracing his jaw, steps forward holding the match. His left hand clasps a small painted icon of Saint Barbara. He touches it to his lips once, then shuffles to the breech. Even from 20 paces, you hear the hiss as the smoldering cord puffs against dew. A moment's delay, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a calculation, and then the cord dips. There is no sound. Then, every sound. Thunder doesn't begin to credit it. The world convulses, soil leaps, your gut punches your spine. A flame column bursts from the muzzle 3 times the length of the barrel, white at its heart, edged crimson. Lady Tremor rears back, carriage wheels digging trenches deeper than plowshare. A rumble rolls up the slope and slaps the nobles' faces with hot, gritty air. Several fall to their knees. You hear metal whine, the braces flexing under recoil, and a wooden stanchion snaps but miraculously holds. The shot? You never see it, only sense a dark blur crossing the valley faster than eye or prayer can track. A heartbeat later, the fortress wall blooms dust like an anvil struck by a smith of giants. Those dust clouds boil, cascade, settle, revealing a cratered dent, but the wall still stands. A disappointed groan ripples through the onlookers, quickly hushed. Nobody wants to sound ungrateful while their ears still ring. Hugo doesn't groan. He's already scribbling notes. Recoil distance, flame length, impact pattern. He eyes the cracked stanchion, barks for thicker timber. While carpenters scamper off, the crew lay wet hides across the barrel to cool it. You spot hairline fissures in the topsoil where Lady Tremor's shockwave rippled like pond water. Horses half a mile behind the ridge rear in panic. Cooks drop pans. The earth itself seems to mutter complaints. Reloading begins. Powder merchants claim black saltpeter is patient. She'll explode when you ask, again and again. But Hugo treats her like an unpredictable lover. The second charge is 5% lighter, the wadding double-layered. Meanwhile, the enemy answers. You hear the crack of smaller cannon. Handguns lash smoke plumes from parapets, but their stones splash in the moat or skid harmless through outer works. New technology makes poor marksmen out of brave men. Still, stray fragments whistle overhead, and nobles suddenly remember pressing appointments elsewhere. You remain, partly from duty, partly fascination. Between shots, the valley swells with additional sound, men coughing from smoke, dying echoes ricocheting among hills, siege drummers beating a march that no one will step to until the breach widens. You realize medieval war has stumbled onto an unwanted future, one where clashes start with alchemy and only afterward involve swords. A future that stinks of rotten eggs and scorched flesh. Second firing. This time you brace yourself, but the concussion still punches inside your helmet like mallet blows. The ball strikes lower on the wall, close to the first scar, and masonry finally yields. A section the width of a tavern doorway caves inward, vomiting stones. Defenders vanish in the plume. Cheers erupt, half ecstatic, half hysterical. Siege commanders signal assault ladders forward, though Hugo mutters it's premature. Lady Tremor hasn't sung her loudest verse. Hours blur into a smoky symphony. Load, fire, repair carriage, fire again. Each discharge widens the gape until wall rubble forms a makeshift ramp. By mid-afternoon, infantry surge across the valley under a disorganized arrow drizzle. You spot the banner of your own company, the Red Boar, advancing not quite bravely, more propelled by collective shove. Powder has done in half a day what starvation siege might take a month. Yet inside the breach waits murder. Crossbowmen perched on inner rubble, boiling pitch kettles pipped into gaps, a lone knight in dented mail, hurling stones bare-handed. You grip spear shaft and wonder if black powder truly saves lives or only rearranges who dies first. Night finds you back at the battery, limbs quivering from adrenaline and from dragging wounded out of the kill zone. Surgeons saw it until moonrise. Still, the pile of limbs resembles a butcher's discard. Gunners lie about in a daze, ears bleeding slightly, smiles vacant. Hugo walks among them, distributing vinegar-soaked cloths for powder rash. He pauses beside you. "Tomorrow we test grape shot," he says, as if remarking on weather. "Smaller balls, wider scream." You nod without commitment. Somewhere inside, a border sprawls between curiosity and revulsion, and each new invention pushes you closer to it. An hour before dawn, shrieks slice the smoky air. A powder magazine behind the fortress has ignited. Perhaps careless spark, perhaps deliberate sabotage. The blast silhouettes crenels like broken teeth against a green-white fireball. Heat rolls across the fields like summer wind. You glimpse flaming debris cartwheeling above battlements before gravity claims them. Soldiers cheer instinctively, then fall silent, aware that what burns the enemy today may torch your own camp tomorrow. By mid-morning, negotiations begin. A white flag trembles above the ruined gatehouse. Envoys pick their way over stones still warm from yesterday's shots. Rumor swirls. The defenders demand safe passage. Our Lord counterdemands unconditional surrender. Powder gives everyone louder voices. While diplomats haggle, Hugo orders Lady Tremor sponged out and her barrel greased for the march to the next war. He employs cartwrights to reinforce axle skins, offers double wages if they work through supper. Black powder not only terrifies armies, it bankrupts treasuries trying to feed its appetite. You wander through the breached wall once terms are signed. The crater's lip flakes beneath your boots. Inside, courtyard buildings lie collapsed like fragile toys. A broken catapult wheel juts from debris, archaic against this new ruin. Among shattered merlons, you find fragments of your first shot's granite, heat-spidered, edges sharp enough to shave calluses. You pocket a shard as grisly souvenir, though you know you'll hide it deep in pack because dreams will find it. That night, occupied fortress halls echo with unfamiliar songs. Victors drinking sour barrels abandoned in the cellar. Yet behind the revel stands Hugo's workshop, re-erected in the castle granary. He's already negotiating with the quartermaster for saltpeter from local dung heaps, for willow stands to char, for alewives' urine to improve crystallizations. War travels, powder follows, hell relocates. You volunteer for sentry on the outer wall, craving distance from celebration. Stars knife through smoke haze. Somewhere a lute strums, out of tune. Beneath you, burnt timbers still crackle. You think of how future chroniclers will call today a turning point, the first time great walls bowed to chemical persuasion. But those same chroniclers will skip the cough lodged in your chest, the taste of copper on your tongue whenever you swallow. They will not note how many men began flinching at thunder, even on clear days, or how mules went blind from constant flashes. A shadow sidles up, Hugo, cloak drawn tight. He sets down a small wooden box. Inside, 3 thumb-sized cartridges filled with compacted grain powder, sealed by lacquer. Hand bores, he explains, for emergencies. Light the tail, throw. The casing cracks, powder scatters burning embers. More fright than kill. He presses the box into your palm. Carry them. Better you than some fool who'd juggle for laughs. You almost refuse. More flame seems last thing you want. But his gaze is earnest, almost paternal. He believes survival now lies in mastery of sparks, not in hiding from them. You slip the box under belt and wonder if each soldier will soon bear similar tinder boxes, the way earlier generations bore daggers. With dawn creeping again, orderlies circulate to roust the camp. The army marches east by noon, enemy banners now trophies. Lady Tremor lashed to a reinforced cart, flanked by 8 oxen and twice as many guards. People cheer your column from village hedgerows, but some make the sign against evil after the bombard passes. They've tasted gunpowder at distance and decided it reeks not merely of sulfur, but of revelation, the sort written in the Apocalypse scroll. Road dust mixes with lingering smoke, forming a gray paste that clings to skin. You trudge, mind skimming images. Gore in the breach, gleam of bronze barrel, Hugo's exhilarated grin after each data point. Fear and fascination tangle until you can't separate them. Maybe no one can. Maybe that's the true terror of black powder. It sings to the part of mankind that wants storms under command, even as it whispers that command is illusion. Shove the campfire embers with your boot and watch them glow, because tonight we keep the blaze alive. If you're settling in with headphones or letting that screen dim to spare your eyes, do me the favor of tapping the like button before your fingers get greasy from trail rations. And toss Rolling Thunder in the comments so I know you've marched this far with us. Subscribe too, or the algorithm will leave you stranded in yesterday's battlefield while the rest of us discover tomorrow's explosions. Ready? Good. Shoulder your pack, powder fumes still cling to it, and let's press deeper into the century that traded chivalry for chemistries nobody could pronounce. The army breaks camp under a sky the color of bruised pewter. Overnight, a cold drizzle stitched the banners to their poles and turned wagon tracks into paste. But orders are orders. We march east to the river fortress whose towers gnaw the clouds. Rumor says their treasurer hoarded silver to mint coins stamped with the Virgin's face, because what better patron against gunpowder than the Mother of God herself? We'll see how long holy silver lasts against saltpeter and sulfur. You trudge beside Lady Tremor's ox team, hooves sloshing, chains clanking like distant church bells. Carpenter apprentices walk alongside, tightening lashings every mile. Each jolt reawakens yesterday's bruises along your spine. Someone whistles a tune, pasty little lark, until a sergeant snarls that bird songs invite enemy scouts. The whistler shrugs. Thunder from the forges on wheels is louder than any tune. Ahead, the powder train reeks. Barrels coated in tar, sacks of charcoal stacked like funeral pyres, wicker hampers oozing nitra crystals that sparkle even through caked mud.
Alchemists, 3 of them, lean men who think more about equations than gods, ride mules and argue whether cow dung yields purer nitrate than pigeon droppings. They've labeled their kegs with cryptic sigils, crescents, daggers, a winking moon. One keg bears simply a red skull. Nobody stands too near that one.
Afternoon. The column halts to repair a broken wagon pin. While the smith hammers, you climb a low ridge to stretch legs. From there, the landscape unfurls. Patchwork farms, scarecrows tipping in the wind, and beyond them, the river fortress, its curtain walls glistening wet as though freshly forged. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys inside. Either the garrison hasn't spotted you, or they pretend indifference. You can almost read their thoughts. Stone plus faith beats anything. You finger the souvenir granite splinter in your pouch and wonder if faith is denser than physics. Orders arrive to build forward firing positions before dusk. Hugo chooses high ground on the river's bend where his guns can rake 2 walls at once. Labor gangs wield mattocks while gunners measure angles with knotted cords. You're assigned to timber detail, felling saplings, sharpening stakes. Each strike of your axe vibrates through sore wrists. Resin scent mingles with gun smoke traces in your nostrils until you can't separate nature from combustion. Night descends like a hood. Torches flicker, but Hugo bans open flames near powder. Instead, we work in grim twilight, piling gabions, packing earth. Somewhere over the ridge, a minstrel plucks a harp for officers' supper. The notes float down, fragile but defiant. Music daring powder to silence it. A fellow soldier mutters, "Let him play. Tomorrow he may have fewer fingers." When drums call stand down, you collapse beside the bombard's new berth. Mules bray, oxen chew cud. Rain has stopped, but air remains thick enough to chew. Hugo passes cups of watered wine. He sketches tomorrow's trajectory lines with a charcoal nub on a split board, mumbling about wind speed. One alchemist proposes a new priming mixture, ground glass added for hotter spark. Hugo scratches his beard. Glass cuts bore lining, he warns, but so does enemy scorn. They agree to test a single charge at dawn. Sleep steals you only to deliver nightmares. Stone walls breathing, cannons shrieking like iron banshees, soldiers dissolving into smoke. Just before first light, a real shriek jolts you awake. A horse, spooked, has kicked a powder cart. Sparks? No, thank the saints. But the wheel's iron rim cracked a keg. Black grains spill like ant swarms across mud. Powder guard rushes in, scooping with cupped hands, whispering prayers lest friction ignite. Hugo orders the spillage buried immediately. Wasted powder is cheaper than 40 men incinerated before breakfast. The fortress chooses this tense moment to send greetings. Sunrise silhouettes their trebuchet arm launching a flaming pot. It arcs gracefully, almost beautiful, until it smashes into an empty supply wagon on our flank. Pitch splatters, fire licks canvas. Men race with buckets. Someone layers a tarp, smothering flames. You watch embers fizzle and realize the defenders still believe muscle-driven machines will outwit thunder tubes. Their confidence is quaint and dangerous because desperation breeds unpredictability. Mid-morning, Lady Tremor stands cocked at 32 degrees elevation, her copper vent sparkling with new priming mix. The crew affix a leather blast shield into the earth, an innovation after last siege's shrapnel injuries. You position yourself behind a gabion stack, but curiosity drags your face halfway past the rim. Hugo signals. Match dips. This time you anticipate the pressure wave and clench teeth. But the detonation still slams eardrums like cymbals. Flame belches, smoke bellows. Carriage slides back half a yard. The shot sails, higher than ever, vanishing in sky glare before barking stone and mortar apart on the fortress south tower. Through spyglass, Hugo sees roof timbers erupt. Defenders scramble ant-like amid dust cloud. He grins. Success. No bore damage from glass additive, and jots notes. Gunners cheer. You cough soot into your sleeve. Artillery duel ensues. The fortress answers with wrought iron thunder jugs, short-barreled cousins to your bombard. Their booms mimic distant thunder compared to Tremor's earthquake, yet iron balls ricochet too close. One digs a trench 3 feet from where you stood seconds prior, spraying splinters. Adrenaline spikes, knees liquefy. You remind yourself, terror is universal, survival not. Between reloads, you fetch water skins for crew. Barrels hiss when sluice hits hot metal. Steam clouds smell like smithy and seaweed. You notice one ox lies tangled in harness lines, heart burst from concussion earlier, and stable boys struggle to cut the carcass free. Even beasts can't outrun new physics. Afternoon, Hugo surprises everyone by unveiling smaller siblings to Lady Tremor, 2 bronze culverins slim enough to elevate higher. He names them Faith and Doubt, grinning at irony. Their balls weigh mere 4 pounds, but fly twice as fast, shrieking like demons exiled from cathedral spires. First volley smashes crenels. Second overshoots and splashes river, sending white geese squawking. Doubt's fourth shot, though, cracks barrel trunnion with a metallic shriek. Crew members dive away as bronze fragments ping the parapet. No explosion, just a wounded gun now coughing slag. Hugo curses softly, pats the hot metal affectionately, as if apologizing for pushing her spirit too hard. By dusk, a triangular breach gapes above the river gate. Engineers suggest storming under cover of darkness. Infantry officers argue they need moonlight. You remain volunteer runner between sections. Each jog across muddy ground lit by sporadic torchlight reminds you of fuse trails sizzling. Finally, the decision. Assault at false dawn while defenders' eyelids still heavy. You spend the dark interval stacking ladders, coiling ropes. Nearby, alchemists mix wild fire pots, clay flasks stuffed with pitch, rosin, oil, and miniature powder charges. They seal mouths with wax and linen. Finished jars sit like newborn dragons waiting first breath. One alchemist, nicknamed Sparrow, drops a pot. Reflexes snatch it mid-air. Everyone exhales. Sparrow laughs high-pitched, sweat dripping. See? Proof I have guardian imps. No one laughs back. Hours pass. You huddle behind mantlet shield, hugging spear, shivering though not from cold. Sergeants smear lamp black on faces to reduce torch glare. Chaplain gives swift blessing, promises indulgences, insists gunpowder is merely God's instrument made manifest. Some mutter that hell's stink rising from barrels feels less like heaven's plan. Drums roll, the assault begins. You rush after the front rank toward breach slope of broken stones, slippery with moss and blood from earlier skirmish.
Arrows hiss downward. Wildfire pots arc upward. One pot explodes mid-air, shards whizzing like wasp stingers. Another lands amid defenders. Green flames flower, illuminating panic on their faces. Guns fall silent during assault. No one wants friendly fire. So the soundtrack shifts. Clank of steel, thud of stones, shrieks, commands shouted in half-dozen tongues. Near the breach, you witness a defender swinging makeshift flail, a chain with cannonball on end. He brains 2 attackers before a crossbow bolt folds him. You clamber over him, boots slipping on brain matter, and push into inner yard. Inside, chaos, smoke swirling from burning granary, screams of horses trapped in stables. You parry a spear thrust, drive your own point beneath mail hem. Killing feels both distant and intimate. Flame-lit shadows distort faces until friend and enemy blur. Powder haze settles over everything like biblical plague. Suddenly, trumpets outside, muffled yet recognizable. Cease assault, pull back. Confusion, why now? You retreat with others as flaming debris rains down from collapsing roof. Back beyond wall, messenger explains. Fortress envoys requested parleys after seeing granary blaze threaten entire town. They'll surrender if allowed to keep priestly relics unharmed. Our commander, fearing wider firestorm, agrees. Life is easier to tax than ashes. Dawn negotiates surrender papers. You stand guard while scribes scratch Latin into parchment. Defenders file out, weapons surrendered, soot-black tears streaking cheeks. Many stare at Lady Tremor with raw hatred, but also fascination, as if she's not canon but prophecy. One elderly captain limps past, hissing, "You trade courage for coward's thunder." You almost answer, but words fail. Truth feels ambiguous. Occupation phase begins. Hugo requisitions Fortress Foundry to recast Doubt's broken trunnion. You're told to inventory powder store. Inside vaulted cellar, you count barrels. Some branded with crescent moon like ours, proof of smuggling. Others home-brewed, moisture-spoiled, hissing lumps of unstable crystals. A single spark here could fold the whole keep like parchment. You mark suspect kegs with chalk skulls and back away slowly. That evening, victors celebrate again. But a pall spreads. Everyone saw what powder can do up close. Surgeons worked past noon. One lost 3 fingers when he probed a wound that hid live ball fragments hot enough to ignite bandages. Soldiers whisper of devilry. Some vow to wear saints' charms. Others demand higher pay. You wander the courtyard where defenders burned pitch earlier. A charred crucifix lies twisted. Perspective of faith amid ashes. You recall the captain's insult. Was it cowardice? Powder doesn't replace courage. It reshapes necessary virtues. Maybe tomorrow's heroism will be measured by steady hands packing charges rather than sword bravado. Hugo finds you. He's ecstatic. Captured powder recipe scrolls mention volatile dragon powder using quicksilver additives. He invites you to witness experiments tomorrow. You nod, half excited, half terrified. He studies your face. "It scares me too," he confesses, "but fear is simply the match that lights inquiry." He claps your shoulder, leaves sulfur on your cloak. Midnight, you climb tower ruin to breathe away stench. River glimmers under moon shards. Frogs croak oblivious to conquests. In the distance, twin pinpricks flash. Other sieges, other bombards answering darkness. The world's horizon is flickering candle line of new warfare. You clutch parapet stone and feel vibration, not imagination, the ground itself shuddering with remote blasts. Earth is learning a new language, and it is loud. Sleep claims you, leaning against Krenel Gap. Dreams spin, barrels blossoming into metallic flowers, nights melted to silhouettes, Hugo laughing while counting stars of fire. You wake before dawn to trumpet summons. March resumes toward yet another rebellious lordship. Carts rattle, hooves splash. You realize campaigns no longer revolve around seasons. They revolve around powder supplies. As long as ingredients can be harvested from manure heaps and alchemist vats, war has no winter. You fall in step, boots squelching. Ahead, surgeon's cart carries sawed limbs to bury. Behind, alchemist's cart carries infant barrels to roar. Life and death rolling on the same ruts. You catch yourself humming the minstrel's tune, low and off-key. Perhaps songs will survive when walls do not. Rake the dying coals one more time, friend, and feel the sparks nip your knuckles, because we're nowhere near finished. Before the next fuse burns down, smash that like button so hard the algorithm thinks it was hit by a stone shot. Then slip dragon smoke into the comments to prove you're riding with the powder train instead of watching safely from the walls. Subscribe too, or trust me, our cannons will roll on without you, and nobody wants to wake up in a fortress that hasn't heard the news. Ready? Cinch your cloak, wipe the soot from your eyelids, and follow the sulfur scent eastward. The column pulls out at dawn, wheels creaking like old monks' knees. Behind us, the captured fortress still smolders, and scavengers sift its outer ditch for scrap iron. Ahead lies the Duchy of Ardenvet, whose ruler swore last winter that fireworks are for festivals, not fields. We're about to furnish a rebuttal. Hugo rides up front this time, pacing the oxen with a borrowed cursor. Faithful Lady Tremor lumbers behind him, flanked by infantry arching spears over their shoulders like a moving palisade. Farther back, the alchemists guard a new wagon painted with crimson spirals and nailed shut by iron hasps. No one is allowed within 3 paces unless they wear the silver talisman sparrow stamped yesterday, a laughing skull crowned with flames. Rumor claims the crate inside carries mercury dragons, powder cakes soaked in quicksilver salts. Roadside villages greet us warily. Mothers yank children indoors at the sight of gun barrels. Fathers bow, then spit when backs turn. You can't blame them. Last month, these same barrels erased their cousin's keep in a morning. Still, some bring bread. The quartermaster pays with clipped coins that jangle like tin. Silver's short because gun founders buy it up to sweeten bronze. Whenever bread's scarce, we chew smoked horse and wash it down with watered beer that tastes faintly of copper shavings. Mid-morning, a messenger arrives on a lathered palfrey bearing bone tube missive from court. The king congratulates Hugo on pious victories wrought through heavenly thunder and demands demonstrations for visiting envoys once the next city falls. Hugo scowls. Showmanship for diplomats means extra powder burned on pageantry instead of siege. But orders stand. He pockets the scroll and mutters, "Heavenly thunder costs earthly coin."
We make camp by a ruined shrine whose roof collapsed in an earthquake years ago. Only the bell tower remains, cracked, leaning, but still tall enough for Hugo's range knot boys to measure distances. They haul a rope to the top and dangle weighted plumb lines, counting heartbeats in the wind. Meanwhile, we dig new gun pits under the tower's shadow. The soil here is stony. Every shovel stroke sends flints sparking. Powder guards grow twitchy, stomping stray pebbles like embers. After dusk, Hugo convenes a council around a lantern hooded so tight its glow barely reaches your boots. On a scrap of vellum, he sketches Ardenvet's curtain wall. Limestone 20 feet high, 15 thick, buttressed by square towers every 50 yards. Moat on 3 sides, river on the 4th. Unlike last keep's ragged mortar, these stones fit like scholar's puzzle, too tight for your finger. So the plan isn't to bludgeon, but to shatter. Multiple synchronized blasts. That's where the dragons come in. Sparrow unwraps a fist-sized brick of black, gleaming as though oiled. He explains, common powder granules waste energy as they burn. Compress them with quicksilver nitrate and honey, dry the loaf, then saw cubes. The result, slower spark but deeper boom. It's bread for hungry walls, he jokes, tapping the brick. Nobody laughs. Honey still coats his fingertips. You wonder if it'll taste of death. Hugo orders 3 volunteers for a midnight test. You draw the short straw again. The range team hikes half a mile into an abandoned quarry, dragging one of the dragons inside a cedar box the carpenters threw together last minute. We lower it by rope into a fissure, fuse coiled atop like a snake basking. Everyone steps back double distance. Sparrow unspools cord, mutters a chant that might be chemical ratios, maybe a prayer. Spark. Fuse sputters white. Seconds tick. Then, the ground doesn't just shake, it flexes. A low bass note rolls out, flattening reeds, snuffing torches. The sky itself seems to hiccup. Stone shards rain for 2 full breaths. When dust settles, the fissure has become a jagged pit wide as a church nave. One dragoon whispers, "Saints preserve us." Sparrow replies, "Saints had their chance." Word spreads before sunrise, troops breakfast on fear and curiosity. Hugo paces, recalculating. He'll need only 4 dragons to crack Ardenvet's north wall. Trouble is, we have 5, and the king's envoys want an exhibition. He decides to reserve the last cube for demonstration after surrender, if surrender comes. If not, he shrugs, we feed the wall 2 desserts. The march resumes. By noon, we spot Ardenvet's spired rooftops glimmering above maple groves. Scouts report defenders have bolstered parapets with wet hides to smother sparks. They've also strung banners of St. Barbara, patron of artillerymen. Irony runs thick. We camp in a wind-bent orchard half a mile out, wrapping trunks with canvas to catch stray splinters. Hugo wants trenches dug in zigzags leading to launch points. Pickmen swing tools until hands bleed. Surgeons dole goose grease salve. Each hour, gunners move the bombards forward by inches, staying under shield of mantlets hammered from last siege's gate timbers. Arrows occasionally thunk the planks, most snap or glance away. Now and then a heavier quarrel punches through, humming like a wasp. One misses your ear by a child's laugh. You start humming that harp tune again, anything to drown buzzing. Twilight. Hugo invites alchemists inside a half-repaired barn to prep dragons. They lay tarps, set bricks apart like rogues' chess pieces, and affix pig gut fuses trimmed to exact length. You stand sentry a door. Smell inside curdles your stomach. Sweet honey, metallic tang, ammonia bite. Sparrow emerges, eyes watering, and slips you a waxed cloth packet. Salt of wisdom, he says. Snort if plague fumes close your lungs. You nod, stashing it. Privately, you vow never to inhale anything born near those bricks.
Siege Day 1. Clouds hang low, promising rain that never falls. Hugo's guns open before rooster crow. 3 shots to test range. Balls clang off walls, chipping but not cracking. Defenders answer with bolt throwers and one archaic serpentine cannon, belching more smoke than menace. Our crews jeer until a stray shot decapitates Corporal Wren. Laughter ends.
Afternoon. Sappers advance with dragons. You join right flank team lugging cedar box on poles like pallbearers. Under arrow cover, you reach ditch edge. The wall looms overhead. Pours sweating damp moss. 2 sappers scale with hooks, fixing a block and tackle to haul dragon up. You shelter behind a pavis, heart banging louder than incoming arrows. Rope squeals, box ascends sluggishly. Above, the hooksmen wedge iron spikes between stones, then tie fuse tail to a pitch-soaked rope dangling back down. Signal flag wiggles, haul away. Dragon nestles against wall base just below walkway. Hooksmen scramble down. They slash the hauling rope, leaving box wedged. One lights pitch tail. You drag Pavi's back, stumbling over roots. Fuse burns slower than ordinary powder. Long hiss, sinister calm.
Impact? No. First comes a suck, air rushing toward wall as if inhaled. Then explosion snaps like universe-tearing cloth. Wall section bulges outward, shards whipped across ditch. One stone the size of a sow cartwheels overhead and buries itself yards behind. The air shock lifts you, dumps you sideways. Ears ring, nose bleeds. Through watery vision, you see sun spearing through a triangular hole large enough to ride 2 horses abreast.
Sappers cheer raggedly until returning dust-choked stones pelt helmets. But Hugo's plan works. Wall fracture deep, inner fill collapsing. Defenders atop vanish, either flung or buried. We haul second dragon for adjacent rib, repeat the horror. By sunset, Ardenvet's proud north curtain lies crumbled like stale bread. Commander sends herald demanding surrender. The Duke refuses, banking on moat and inner wall. Hugo grunts, fine, more thunder. Tonight, bombard crews push guns closer, intent on flinging shot directly into breach so infantry can river run tomorrow. You're rotated to powder shuttle, hauling fresh kegs along trench galleries lit by oil lamps cut low. Sparks everywhere in your imagination. Every footstep could be last. You catch yourself praying to St. Barbara despite suspecting she's busy on both sides.
In the small hours, disaster. A careless runner drops a copper lantern near powder staging. Flame kisses loose grains. Instant flash. Storage lean-to erupts, throwing burning planks skyward. You dive into mud behind barrel stack. Heat sears hair. The blast isn't dragon big. Thank fate, only reserve charges present. But enough to kill 7, wound twice that. When Hugo arrives, face gray, he finds you helping bind a gunner whose arm resembles roasted quail. Investigation reveals culprit lantern lacked glass guard, cracked during haul. Hugo orders all lamps confiscated. Henceforth, trenches will glow only by glowworms if necessary. Morale sags. Men mumble curses about alchemists summoning demons they can't leash. Even Sparrow looks shaken, hands trembling as he scribbles new safety charms on parchment tags. Siege Day 2 dawns with rain at last, gentle but steady, turning trenches into oat porridge. Mud clogs cannon wheels, crews lay planks. But powder hates moisture. Alchemists scramble to wrap charges in oiled silk. Dragon bricks thankfully sealed, but priming powder spoils fast. Hugo delays assault till noon in hopes weather clears. It doesn't. So he improvises. He'll fire reduced loads to keep enemy pinned, while sappers extend fascine bridges across moat under cover of smoke. Infantry will storm breach even if gunfire is muted. You are reassigned to bridge detail. Hefty bundles of willow and brush bound with rope. Slippery, heavy, stinking of swamp. Arrow fire surprisingly light. Defenders conserve shafts. That worries you. What are they plotting? Halfway across moat, question answered. They sabotage upstream sluice gates. Brown torrent surges, rising inches per minute. Bridges bob, drift, threaten to overturn. Men scramble, lose footing. You leap onto the sludge-smothered slope as water drenches boots. Fascines hold for now, but assault must hurry. Trumpets blare. Bannermen hoist mud-flecked standards. You join wave pouring through rough breach into inner yard sodden as brewery ton. This time defenders wait with poles tipped by fire pots. Flames burst along ranks. Rain hisses but cannot quench resin-fed tongues. Screams echo. You thrust spear low, hooking a defender's knee. Yank! He falls. Comrade steps on him. Carnage stacks. Somewhere ahead, Hugo's culverin faith booms from trench lip, lobbing shot over our heads into a keep tower. Perfect arc. Stonework shivers, defenders falter. Your cohort presses. After 20 minutes of muddied, flame-tinged nightmare, inner bailey secured. Duke retreats into chapel, barricades door, petitions angels more than sergeants. Negotiations short. Dragon number 3 placed at chapel wall. Chaplain begs Hugo to spare consecrated ground. Hugo's jaw twitches. Tell your Duke vaults crack either way. My patience first. Duke yields when fuse laid. Keys jangle. Doors open, white banners wave. Soldiers pour in, bind remaining guards, extinguish fires using holy water fonts. Occupying Ardenvet feels hollow. Rain continues, soaking powder stores so thoroughly that even celebratory volleys fizzle. Dead require burial, but soil collapses. We cremate on shattered plaza. Smoke mingles with hearth fires. Alchemists hunt for nitrate cellars rumored beneath apothecary, but find only wine. Troops celebrate by drinking it anyway. Bad idea whilst escorting dragons. Hugo confiscates casks. King's envoys arrive 3 days later, bright silks splattered with road grime, expecting triumphal salute. Hugo forces a smile. He stages demonstration outside East Gate, the 5th dragon buried beneath a boulder. Envoys watch from gilded chairs under awning. Fuse lit.
Blast launches rock skyward. It arcs over encampment, lands half-mile in marsh with geyser. Envoys applaud politely, eyes wide with mingled awe and dread. They hand Hugo velvet purse, payment for spectacle advancing royal prestige.
Night after envoys depart, Hugo confides to you he's uneasy. Power that impresses allies terrifies rulers eventually, he says, staring into brazier. Today they clap, tomorrow they ask why we need men like us at all. You picture future where monarch hoards dragons, dismisses veterans, maybe ignites wars without leaving palace. World tilts.
Rain ends at last. Air smells of wet stone and wine vinegar. In sunrise's first color, you climb Chapel Tower, scaffolding still shaky, to sketch battlefield for memory. Through gaps in still-standing wall, you see spring green returning despite scorch marks. Life indifferent to gunpowder's tantrums. You descend, find Sparrow atop parapet sprinkling salt circles around remaining powder kegs before transport. Superstition? Science. He winks. Salt draws moisture, also demons. He gestures to courtyard, where children of townsfolk now play tag among broken siege ladders. They'll remember thunder as story, not terror, unless we repeat. He lobs pebble into moat. Ripples fade. Orders come. We march south next week. Rebellion rising where nobles distrust king's new thunder. You pack kit, finger that granite splinter again. It feels smoother than before, edges worn by constant handling. You wonder if one day the world will hold no sharp edges at all, just soot-polished pebbles shaped by repeated blasts. The sun sets behind Ardenvet's crippled towers, staining sky ember red. You shoulder spear, glance at Lady Tremor, her barrel patched, ready. A stable boy pets her iron girth like its warhorse flank. You catch yourself smiling. Madness or acceptance, you can't tell. Shoulders ache, boots squelch, and the smell of cured leather now mingles permanently with the ghost scent of burnt saltpeter in your cloak. No fanfare marks our departure, just the slow, insistent creak of wagons turning south, deeper into barony country, where the king's writ is paper-thin, and the locals still swear by oak spirits instead of royal seals. Smash that like button right now if you can merely taste the iron on the back of your tongue, and drop the code phrase "Thunder Migrant" in the comments so I know you're trudging beside us instead of observing from some clean balcony. And if you're new, subscribe or risk sleeping through the next earth-shaking surprise we uncrate. Trust me, nobody wants to wake up after the smoke clears and realize the story marched off without them. The first week out of Ardenvet is misery disguised as routine. Rain stopped, but mud lingers ankle deep, sucking nails from cartwheels and threatening to eat small dogs whole. Each dawn we haul Lady Tremor and her two sister bombards, recently christened Wasp Sting and Bell Ringer, out of the muck with winch teams cursing in 3 languages. Blacksmiths ride rear guard, forever reheating horseshoes that twist on stones cleaved by last siege's concussions. Supplies ride light because the king's quartermaster promised ample stocks at Sarthwyl Market Town. Instead, we reach Sarthwyl on day 4 to find its high street boarded, merchants gone, and larders stripped. Apparently, word of our approach preceded us, and every grain sack fled with its owner. Hugo sends provosts to requisition. They return with 10 hens, 2 ox skulls, and 1 municipal constable trembling so hard his badge rattles. We dine that night on watery stew flavored by fear and dandelion roots. Still, something else gnaws at camp morale. It isn't hunger or mud, it's rumor. The envoys who witnessed the dragon demonstration whispered to cooks that the king may soon license private powder guilds, merchant bankers with deeper purses than any crown. If thunder becomes trade, soldiers become obsolete, siege masters become liabilities, and alchemists become either golden geese or caged serpents. Word spreads faster than plague in a leper house. Men polish pikes with haunted eyes, wondering if their next enemy will pay them better than their current patron. Sparrow reacts by doubling the ward signs painted on powder wagons, hex knot patterns in ochre, chalk pentagrams on canvas flaps, tiny bronze bells sewed under lashings to jingle the demons away. One night you find him burying an eggshell filled with silver filings beneath Lady Tremor's breech. Insurance, he claims. Against who? Everyone. We crest the low ridge locals call Widow's Spine and finally spy the rebel heartland, rolling wheat, tidy orchards, and at its center, the fortress town of Brynwark. 2 concentric walls ring a cathedral spire like mother and daughter embracing. Between walls, wooden roofs gleam freshly tarred, fireproof as they can manage. But the real novelty sits on the outer rampart, rows of unfamiliar shapes under candaces. Our scouts, peering through speaking tubes, insist those are cannon. Rebel cannon, brass things cast in secret for months. News hits mess lines like sour beer. Until now, thunder belonged solely to royal armies. If rebels answered with their own, stalemate looms, unless Yugo's dragons tip the scales. He orders immediate night reconnaissance. You're chosen again. Apparently, surviving 2 dragon runs brands you as talisman or expendable. Recon team steals through poplar groves. Moon hides, clouds skitter past like startled deer. At ditch edge, we spy rebels testing a culverin. Flash, roar, shot splashes far short. Training exercise. Their gunners still green, but give them time and they'll learn. Beside each piece sits a mule cart holding powder kegs bound with rope no thicker than thumb. One spark here, the notion noodles your brain until Captain Riss hisses retreat. We slither back, fortunate no one sneezes. Hugo gathers officers before sunrise, parchment map spread on overturned ale barrel. Plan, strike before enemy's gunners graduate. Use cavalry feint at East Gate to draw attention. Meanwhile, infiltrate you and 9 sappers with 2 dragons toward North Parapet via dried mill race reported by locals. Place bricks under captured rebel cannon, detonate, chain react their magazine, open breach from inside out. Risk level? High enough to blister ears. Benefit? Skip weeks of bombardment and save royal coffers. Command agrees. Nobody asks your opinion. Preparations blur into fever dream. Alchemists shave dragon bricks to fit slim wicker carriers. Every shaving collected lest spark devour tent. You oil your mail, black soot the rings to hide gleam. Each sapper issued a wax-wrapped fuse coil longer than cathedral aisle. Sparrow gives final instruction. Count slowly to 9 when flame meets cord. On 10, you regret life choices if still inside. He presses a scrap of vellum into your palm. Tiny prayer to Saint Eligius, patron of metalworkers and improbable escapes. Night of infiltration arrives, hushed yet frantic. Cavalry under Captain Iseult clops eastward, torches bright, horns bullish. Rebel watchtowers glare awake, throwing conch whistles into the air. Meanwhile, your team crouches at mill race mouth, waterless in summer drought. You slide dragons carefully, wooden sleds muffled by goat hides. Cool air reeks of moss and stale grain. Dim, jaundiced lantern ahead reveals brick channel under wall intersecting armory cellar. Halfway, first glitch. Tunnel narrows where silt collapsed. You and Finn must lever stones aside. Each scrape rattles dust down neck. But you clear gap and drag sled onward, breath sawing lungs. Reaching cellar, you peer through barred drain opening. Inside, rebel gunners polish culverin rims, chatting about someone's sister's wedding. 2 paces beyond them, clay jars of powder stacked like choir benches. Heart drums hammer cadence. Plan demands silent dispatch. Riss unslings crossbow, loads broadhead laced with poppy resin. Drop them instead of killing, and maybe they reveal magazine layout later. Bolt twangs. First gunner collapses. Second cries alarm. Too late. Finn tackles him, applying sap behind ear. You slip through grate after prying bar with crowbar disguised as pilgrim staff. Once inside, stench of saltpeter blackens nostrils. Sparrow's dragons weigh more now. Gravity heavier? No, just nerves. You wedge first brick under nearest cartwheel, splice and fuse along powder trails like spider web. Second brick tucked behind largest keg cluster. Fuses braided to single line, snaking back toward grate, through tunnel, up tack hole bored earlier to surface behind orchard wall. The braid coated with wax to resist dew. All set. Count team heads. 8. Where's Riss? He's by cannon, pryin' bronze nameplate a souvenir. Idiot. You drag him out by cloak. Retreat. Tunnel feels longer. Night outside, crisp, star-flecked. At safe distance, Hugo's courier waits with lantern hooded. You glance over shoulder. Orchard leaves shimmer under moonlight. Then light. Fuses hissing unheard but imagined. You gallop breathlessly to rally point. Abandoned sheepfold 200 yards farther. Counting. 7, 8, 9. Flash. Even with eyes shut, the world goes white. Boom follows, layered. First dragon, then powder store, then cannon magazines. Shockwave punches lungs. You gag, drop to knees. Ground ripples like thrown carpet. Sheepfold roof disintegrates, tiles zip past. You open eyes. Brynwark's north wall erupts skyward in fiery petals. Cannon barrels somersault like tossed keys, trailing sparks. A flaming mule arcs cartoonishly before slamming orchard. Night transforms to crimson noon. Cheering erupts across meadow as friendly infantry surge, but jubilation curt, debris rains lethal. Hugo's forward units hold until fallout slows. Then horns command charge through smoke gap. You and sappers stumble behind, still half deaf. Rebel morale shattered. Defenders at other walls desert posts to douse internal fires. By dawn, Brynwark's gates unbar from inside by starving townsfolk demanding mercy. We enter amid ruin. Streets cluttered with roof beams, shattered stained glass, burning grain. Yet casualties minimal compared to full siege. Hugo's gamble paid. Still, the spectacle has consequences.
Among ruins, scouts retrieve fragments of our dragon bricks. Rebels will study them, thunder secrets no longer exclusive. King's messengers arrive ahead of schedule, thrilled. Brynwark taken in single night. They present gilded scroll, our core ordered back to royal capital for grand conclave of progress, exhibition before foreign princes, papal legates, merchant bankers. Hugo stiffens. This is the feared moment. Thunder becomes stage act. He can't refuse. Papers also mention that Private Powder Guild charter passed council, signed during our march. That evening campfire talk turns mutinous. Artillerymen worry guildmasters will poach alchemists with higher pay. Pikemen fret they'll be disbanded to fund foundries. Even blacksmiths feel threatened. If bronze dragons rule, who cares about shoeing horses? Hugo gathers companies, delivers speech. Thunder forged by our sweat. Let outsiders chase profit. We keep discipline. In court, we'll stand united, or we'll be forgotten separately. Stirring, but doubt lingers. You receive cryptic note via urchin. Meet under broken bell at moonrise. S. You slip away. Under collapsed monastery bell, sparrow waits, cloak blending shadows. He reveals rumor. Guild envoy plots to steal remaining dragon bricks en route, blaming bandits to gain monopoly. He asks your help guarding convoy, maybe staging decoy. His eyes show more fear than mischief tonight. Within week, column rolls toward capital. Guards double. Dragons now split. One in main train, one secreted inside hay wagon disguised as fodder for cavalry remounts. Your idea. Sparrow grateful. You still fear guild spies among us. 2 days out, ambush at Forest Pass. Arrows cut front scouts. Masked riders attack powder wagon. Battle chaotic along pines. You and Chosen 10 defend haycart, thrusting spears through canvas walls. Attacker torches willow arrows with pitch, aiming to ignite load. You tackle him, driving blade through quilted jack. Flames lick hay. You smother with wet cloak, heart pounding louder than skirmish noise. When dust settles, attackers flee, leaving 7 dead. Captive confesses hired by Merchant Consortium of Thunder interests. Proof, if any needed, that powder war shifted from crowns to coin purses. Hugo grim. He posts sentries in shifts of 2, orders dragons unloaded from wagons nightly, buried upright like tombstones, safer underground than on wheels. Soldiers mutter they guard demons' graves. Capital's spires finally pierce horizon, copper roofs glinting. Banners line road, crimson phoenix over crossed cannons, new crest of Powder Guild, already flying beside royal lions. Court musicians rehearse bombastic marches echoing from city walls. We file through gate. Citizens cheer, but you sense apprehension beneath confetti petals. They've heard thunder. They're not sure whether to celebrate or build deeper cellars. Inside Palace Yard, carpenters erect grandstand facing practice field. Alchemists assigned pavilions stocked with luxuries, perfumed water, silk cushions, guild's hospitality. Sparrow snorts, gold chains make fine leashes. Hugo instructs you to oversee installation of Lady Tremor and Wasp Sting on display plinths. Guild engineers swarm, taking measurements, tracing runes, nodding approvingly, yet scribbling improvements in ledgers.
You step between one and Tremor's trigger. He bristles, but retreats. Boundaries. Evening before conclave. Banquet in marble hall. Long tables groan under pheasant, quails, sugar castles sculpted into thunder motifs. Toasts offered in sparkling rhubarb wine. Yet tension buzzes. At King's high table sits Guildmaster Orsino, rings glittering like molten brass. His compliments toward Hugo spiced with veiled intent. We must place such brilliance into systematic production for the benefit of realm, under proper stewardship, of course. Hugo smiles thinly. You notice Sparrow absent. Later you find him outside Alchemist's tent, packing vials into saddlebag. Leaving? He nods. Guild wants formulas, not men. I prefer wind at my back. There's a monastery across sea where they value silence over glory. He presses envelope into your glove, sealed with his flame skull sigil. Give this to Hugo if I vanish. He mounts borrowed mule, fades into moonlit alleys.
Conclave day. Grandstand filled with diplomats in brocade. King sits under cloth of gold canopy. Hugo steps onto dais, explains demonstration. Simultaneous firing of 3 calibers, then controlled deflagration of miniature dragon to show precision. Guild engineers hover, ready to record. You serve on firing crew, palms slick despite training. Crowd hushes.
First volley. Wasp sting barks, ball shatters masonry target. Applause. Second, bell ringer launches chain shot, severing row of wooden pikes. Gasps. Third, Lady Tremor to unleash heated shot at iron cuirass 50 yards out. Fuse lit, wick hissing. Suddenly, you spot unfamiliar man near powder chest, sliding brass rod into charge port. Sabotage! You shout. Hugo spins, but too late. Rod sparks. Lady Tremor's chamber detonates prematurely. Gun bursts like overripe melon. Shockwave topples stand's front rail. Smoke blinds. Screams erupt. Ears ringing, you stagger to feet, find King shielded by guards. Few nobles injured, but explosion killed 2 gunners instantly, maimed 3. Guildmaster Orsino shrieks about irresponsible soldiers. Hugo retorts, sabotage. Accusations fly. Chaos threatens to dissolve court.
You recall Sparrow's envelope, tear seal. Inside, diagram of rod identical to saboteurs. Note reading, they'll engineer a failure to discredit crowned cores, proving only guild protocols are safe. Trust no spectacle. Hugo reads, face hardening. He orders arrest of saboteur, who lies crushed by debris. Convenient. Guild denies involvement. Political storm brews. King privately meets Hugo that night. You stand guard outside chamber, hearing muffled debate. Ultimately, decision emerges. Corp retained but absorbed under joint oversight with Guild. Compromise, none desire, but all accept to avoid civil fracture. Dragons to be recast with Guild forging, Corp providing crews. Hugo given honorary title, yet stripped of independent command. Thunder tamed by parchment. Next morning, Hugo addresses troops. Some will stay, others discharged with token pensions. He urges loyalty, but eyes betray bitterness. You, as veteran sapper, offered place in new hybrid unit or chance to walk away. Choice weighs heavy. Guild gold promises stability, yet leash chafes. That night,
You climb palace battlements overlooking river, clutching granite splinter, smoothed near polished. Fireworks for conclave finale streak sky, bright but hollow echoes of real powder's force. Crowd below cheers, unaware, thunder they celebrate just lost its soul. Wind claws at the battlements, tugging at cloaks and banners that still reek of yesterday's firestorm. The capital lies restless below, torchlit lanes full of gossiping courtiers, sulking soldiers, and guild accountants already tallying tomorrow's profits. You stand there, fingers brushing the stone parapet, and realize this isn't just the end of a campaign. It's the opening gunshot of a brand new age, one louder, faster, and infinitely more treacherous. Before we dive, hit that subscribe button like you're slamming a match to a slow fuse, and comment right now with the words, "Powder Crossroads." That's how I'll know you stayed shoulder to shoulder clear through 6 chapters of smoke and ruin. Now pull the hood tight, because tonight's march crosses no physical frontier. It crosses the invisible line between human ambition and human caution, and it leaves blisters on the soul. Hugo's reformed Royal Guild Artillery Corps debuts at dawn with brass trumpets and a scroll dripping fresh wax. Greencoat's new guild livery replace our patched blues. The quartermaster issues identical polished helmets, their crests a phoenix spiraling around a cannon mouth. The message is unmistakable. Same thunder, different master. The oath-taking ceremony drags until sun climbs high. Each man swears to serve both crown and guild, to advance the science of controlled combustion in faithful obedience. Controlled. The word feels like a lock snapping shut. When your turn arrives, you mouth the syllables, but memory of Lady Tremor's betrayal rattles inside your chest. Afterward, we're herded to powder crucible workshops built overnight in old palace gardens. Where roses once bloomed, forged chimneys now belch yellow smoke. Guild engineers hand out clipboards, and instruct veteran gunners on updated ignition metrics. They speak of standardizing awe, of quantifying morale collapse, of optimizing kill ratios. The thunder language you learned on muddy fields is being translated into ledgers and investor reports. Hugo floats through it all like a statue being wheeled to the museum basement. Title, Without Power. He nods, shakes hands, but his eyes fix on distances no one charts. That evening, he summons you, Finn, and Captain Isolt to a disused chapel behind the armory. Candles sputter among crumbling saints. He unrolls Sparrow's sabotage diagram again, presses finger to the signature swirl. Guild kills to claim monopoly, he says. They won't stop at alchemists. Sparrow's trail. We assumed Sparrow vanished across the sea, but rumors slither faster than rats. A dockside informant swears a hooded man boarded no ship. He slipped into the undercity tunnels 2 nights ago, chased by guild search parties. Why? Because Sparrow carries the only surviving notebook detailing improved stabilized powder. A mix less volatile than dragon brick, yet packing equal punch. Whoever controls that formula dictates the next century's wars. Hugo can't order an official rescue. Guild prefects would brand him traitor, but he can whisper. He hands you a wax-sealed purse. Hazel stamps, not royal coin, untraceable. Find him first, Hugo says, not to chain him, to keep choice alive.
Finn grins like old times. Captain Isolt rolls shoulders, the cavalry officer about to mount darkness instead of a mare.
We slipped from barracks at moonrise, swapping crests for plain cloaks. City watch patrols heavier than usual, guild menacing even the king's constables. We duck into a cooper's alley, pry up hatch leading to catacomb passages older than the dynasty. Down there, air tastes of chalk and forgotten prayers. Torches spit resinous light against damp stone.
Undercity is a labyrinth of plague pits, smugglers' shrines, and abandoned wine cellars. Echoes carry too far. We trade speech for hand signs. Remember the silence codes from monastic library stories? Similar gestures guide us now. Thumb to temple means listening. Flat palm rocking means powder hazard. Clenched fist rotating means guild patrol. Language of survival. Hours crawl. In one vault we find 3 guild hirelings dead, throats slit, pouches missing. Sparrow's work? Possibly, but the cuts are neat, too neat. Finn notes edges cauterized. Someone used a heated blade. Alchemist's trick to limit blood spray, minimize clues. Sparrow never liked mess.
We press on, following scrap clues. A feather dipped in brimstone here, a chalk flame skull drawn on wall there. Finally, at junction of collapsed cisterns, we smell cloves, the spice he used to mask powder odor during marches. Torch reveals figure kneeling over cracked chest. Sparrow whirls, dagger raised. Recognition softens his eyes, but not his grip. He tells story in hushed bursts. Guild assassins cornered him earlier. He escaped by igniting flashpot, dropping ceiling stones. He's scavenging ingredients to craft smoke bombs for next escape. He refuses to hand over notebook. No side deserves monopoly, not guild, not crown. Hugo's plea? Sparrow sighs. I know, but giving formula to anyone entrenches their power. Debate flickers across Captain Isolt's face. She sees century of warfare if formula spreads, yet also knows guild will kill thousands to steal it. Finn proposes compromise. Destroy notebook. Keep recipe only in Sparrow's memory, which he can parcel out responsibly. Sparrow counters. Memory can be tortured out. Only way to guarantee balance is to share widely and instantly, making thunder everyone's burden, not one tyrant's tool. Philosophy breaks against practical thunder of approaching boots. Guild patrol. We barricade chamber door with wine casks and crates. Sparrow shoves notebook into your hands. Decisions bigger than me now. Do what soldiers of conscience rarely do. Choose the harder road. Then he sprints through side crack too small for armored foes, disappearing like gun smoke. Captain Isolt shoulders half stave, eyes you. Harder road, sapper. What is it? You stare at notebook, feel weight heavier than iron. Choosing fuse or flood. 3 paths appear. Deliver notebook to Hugo. Crown shares power with guild, perhaps tempering greed. Could save kingdom, but warlords abroad would buy copied versions within years. Thunder spreads anyway, only delayed. Hand notebook to guild directly. Unthinkable unless you crave coin and tyranny. Destroy it here, bury fragments. Knowledge lost, but Sparrow is free. Formula still in his head. That means endless hunting, torture, blood. 4th option blossoms. Publish it openly.
Slip copies to rival kingdoms, monasteries, universities. Overnight thunder becomes common, dreadful, but no single master. Balance through shared terror, like mutual despair holding blade from throat. Is humanity ready? Were we ever?
Boots batter barricade, decision time. Captain Isolde says, "Whatever you choose, I ride with you." Finn nods. Walls tremble. You strike flint, light torch, hold flame above notebook's dry pages. Ink shimmering like dark wine. Destroy or preserve?
The fire choice.
You exhale, lower torch past paper, but not close enough to ignite. Instead, you brand the cover with soot mark, sparrow's skull sigil. "We leak it," you whisper. Finn's brows rise. Assault smirks grim approval. All sides or none. Action plan erupts rapid. Finn knows courier routes out of city, smugglers bound for rival realm across river. Isolde has cavalry contacts who owe her favors. They can ride duplicate packets to monasteries where scribes copy at lightning pace. You'll escort original to cathedral scriptorium tonight, bribed prior to run presses until dawn. In a week, scribes will sing powder verses in 10 dialects.
We smash casket wall, crawl into old sewer, emerge beneath fish market. While guild patrol still batter empty room, we vanish among stalls. The race to dissemination begins. 5 nights blur in montage, copying by candle, wax seals snapped, scroll tubes stacked like fish barrels. Each dawn you collapse for an hour, then run again. Guild sniffers close. You dodge by swapping cloaks, switching horses. Rumor of powder polter sweeps taverns, causing guild stock to wobble, courtiers to quake. Hugo summons you secretly. He's read leaked treatise, furious yet grudgingly impressed. You lobbed a knowledge bomb bigger than any dragon, he says. But he sees potential. If all powers hold thunder, open war might stall. Or it ignites apocalypse. He tasks you with final safeguard. Escort copy to Scholars' Conclave in neutral Free City, where independent artificers can regulate future experiments. Embryonic International Treaty. Journey there is your last march. Across war-scarred bishoprics, town markets now display crude firelocks. Children playing gunner and wall. Thunder common already. Bandit warlords test stolen powder near villages. Some explode themselves. Fear, awe, chaos swirl. But also collaboration. Millers share safer grain charcoal techniques. Monks propose noise reduction baffles for mining, not war. Physicians experiment with blast cauterization. Humanity, messy as ever, folds horror into innovation. At Conclave, beneath astronomical clock, delegates sign Brass Hill Compact, limiting barrel length, mandating fail-safes, creating neutral inspectors. It won't stop every tyrant, but it seeds accountability beyond crowns and guild shares. Sparrow appears on balcony edge, hood down for once. He watches signatures dry, nods subtle thanks, then melts away into bookstalls. Years later, you sit at Riverside Inn, gray at temples, reading newsprint produced by Steam Press, another gift of open ingenuity. Article reports first thunder-powered life-saving device. Avalanche cannon triggers controlled snowslides, saving mountain villages. You sip cider. Recall mud of Widow's Spine. Remember brick channel of Brynwark.
Lady Tremor's bloom of fire. Was the harder road worth it? Question echoes, but answer remains fluid, like powder, stable until touched by spark. If you tasted that bittersweet ending alongside me, tap like so hard your screen rattles. And debate below, did we avert tyranny or just schedule bigger storms? Next series, we'll chase a quieter mystery, perhaps the monastic librarians who mapped stars with beeswax globes, unless you vote for secret sewer guilds that ran medieval elections. Cast your choice in comments, thump subscribe, and keep that notification bell primed. Because history never sleeps, and neither do the stories smoldering beneath its ash.